Hi folks and friends, and welcome to the factory. My name is Sasha and I'll be your guide on this journey. So today we are going to make Princess Neptune from my Sailor Princess collection. So she is one of two left, so yes, we'll soon see the end of this project that I started more than a year ago. So Neptune. As a Sailor Scout, Neptune is another soldier of water, though unlike Mercury, she is more about the sea, the ocean, or about the abyss than she is about ice, mist, or even the rain. So for my version, I decided to use teal as my dominant color and use a couple of pastels, mainly pink, as my accent color. I'll be customizing an Operetta monster idol for the first time also. I've decided to work with the scars carved on her face and body instead of covering them, but if you wonder how I would deal with that if I wanted them gone, well, I think I would do something similar with what I did with my Alastor doll last July and use Worbla to support a layer of epoxy sculpt. So yeah, now that we know about the context, let's get into it. As usual, the first thing I do after prepping the base doll is to give her some hair. I have no footage of the prepping to show, but I show it often in my videos, so if you're looking for that, I left some links in the description box below for you. I am using some Red Heart Super Savory acrylic yarn. I cut them into strips and then I unravel each strand one by one. Then I use my rerouting tool, which is mainly a needle whose eye was cut in an angle, to grab the middle of the strand of yarn and I plunge it into the doll's head, filling the existing holes from her factory hair. And because yarn is thicker than synthetic hair, you also want to plan ahead your reroute. Not all the holes need to be filled, but the perimeter and the part are usually the places that you want to fill in nicely. I like to keep my heads organized, as strange as it sounds, so I usually tied up different sections separately. This is also to help me along the line to sort sections and define the part line before starting to brush the yarn. It's easier to do it now in my opinion. Here, you can see I have another section at the front, and that's the bangs. I am brushing small sections at a time, using an older brush of mine that I only use for this purpose. I start by fluffing the ends and I hold the hair in place as to not pull it out. Yes, I sometimes brush before gluing the hair from the inside, but that's because sometimes I add more plugs if I feel there's not enough. Yarn is chunky enough to take a bit of pulling, but in the end I'm still gentle with it. Once that's fluffy enough, and you know that because the hair will stop looking like ramen noodles, it's time to flat iron it. This is how you will transform it into light, beautiful and realistic strands. One pass is usually enough to make a huge difference, but personally I like to keep brushing lightly and flat ironing until I see soft and shiny hair, just the way I want it to be. And that's one side of the head down. As you can tell, it dramatically shrinked. This is always to be expected. I even thought the amount I plugged is not going to give her a really thick mane, but I actually do not dislike it. Though, like I said, the option to add more is always there. If you need new holes, you can use a needle or even punch them with your tool as you plug new strand in. Now I am tying her hair out of the way to make way to paint her new face. I covered her locks this time with a clean sock, but any scrap of fabric will do. You want to shield the yarn from the product you're about to use. Operetta has a cute purplish pink skin tone, and this is not what we want for Neptune. I'm going to repaint the head with some acrylics that I will first thin out with a bit of water. The aim is to apply many thin coats, that way you will avoid unwanted texture. Look out for bubbles, deep streaks and pulls. It takes some time, but the result is definitely worth it. That is, if you do not hone an airbrush like I do. The other lucky ones can cheese that step. This This is also doable with layers of pastels and sealant, if you feel comfortable with color correction, that is. But I find it really hard and expensive sealant-wise, so I prefer using paint. Though I do not enjoy this process much, but yeah, more on it later. Not foreshadowing. This time I used a pre-mixed shade that's way more pink than my usual custom mix. Again, I am living for it though, just as much. I think having a choice between cool and warm bases will be a great thing. And boom, 3 layers of MSC and a sketch later, we are in face-up territory. Like usual, I start my journey with defining shadows. It's a bit like contouring, really. The pastels don't show off too strong at the moment, but trust me, they will be layered on and they will show at the end. The sealant will also give you a better surface the more coats you will add. I use Mr. Super Clear UV Flat to both prime and seal. Do not forget though that this is a toxic product. If you get your hands on some, wear a respirator mask and spray outside. To apply and blend the pastels, I use any brush I can get my hands on, really, but I do own a couple of cheap makeup brushes as well. I take my time just to make sure that the transitions are smooth and that the features are softly defined. As for Neptune's look, I want something soft and ethereal. And I wanted to have a very specific eyeshadow look that I think will suit her well. I want her to wear a halo high with brown shadows and a pop of vivid teal in the middle. For the rest of her face, I will concentrate on giving her a rosy cheek, a rosy glow, and lips to match. I think that pink, coral, and teal go really well together. I also want to point out that at this moment I am shading her completely overlooking the scar on her cheek, like it's not even there then. I have plans for it, but that will be at the end of the face-up. After I am happy with usually 2 or 3 layers of only pastels, I switch to my watercolor pencils to start defining the shapes, especially around the eyes. I start with light to medium shades usually, and I slowly build up towards more intense pigments like the black. This may seem a little strange, but I don't always use strictly expected colors, if I may say it like that. I can use brownish reds, dark blues, and dark purples in some creases, I guess for the sake of making things more vibrant. I usually work a bit more by feel than by strict order, so I guess that can make it look a bit chaotic from an outside perspective. The most important thing, in my opinion, really is, aside from layering, is to recognize when it's best to stop and add a fresh coat of sealant. Usually, you want to do this to save your progress or when the pigments have stopped building. Then, once you pick up your work back, you can add not only shadows but sometimes even highlights. That's the magic of MSC. I'm a very impatient person, so I totally understand that sometimes we just wanna go, but I find that it really pays off to take our time. Also, MSC needs a drying time each time you apply a new coat, so yeah, you kinda have to wait. You risk dragging the product around and messing things up if you don't give it at least a good 20 minutes. What do I do during the waiting times? Well, being ADHD, I kinda need to stay occupied. I could juggle between 2 faces, but I don't want to risk getting all my attention to one and just not being 100% on the other. So sometimes I just go on YouTube, I play a game on my phone, or I think about how I want to plan the rest of this costume. I have a lot of things, so sometimes I need that 20 minutes to go dig the perfect fabric for a dress. Doll customizers are hoarder here, I said it. Please, friends, don't hate me. So yeah, eyebrows. They are hard, yet they sometimes make or break a face, well, in my opinion. So I always sketch them with pastels on a fresh layer of sealant, and I carve them with my kneading eraser. Though even with my best effort, they still aren't twins. I swear, symmetry don't know her. Also, that big white pencil there? This is a very pigmented and chunky pastel pencil by Derwent. It's one of my best friends and yeah, it's pretty amazing for building whites or highlights. When the base of the brow is set with sealant, I do like to fill them in with a gradient of colors matching the hair. I will also add texture, but that's a bit later down the line. And now, we finally have the black. Yes, I've waited this whole time before having it. And I try to use it sparingly, really, just to define what's more important and usually draw the eyelashes. I want to avoid anything looking muddy, like too dark too soon, and make sure everything is precise and blended. The next phase then is paint, though my tiniest brush is sadly in a bad shape. Honestly, it served me well for what it costed. I've ordered new ones, but they were not home by the time I filmed this, so I did with what I had. I am using watercolor paints with just a little bit of water. I am building texture mainly and defining some key areas. I heard that gouache paint is amazing for this kind of work, but I don't have any, so I'm using something similar. I used to do it with acrylics before, and it's amazing, but I feel like it's more forgiving to use water-activated paints, as it's way more forgiving if you have mistakes to erase. A bit of water and it's gone. I also use a bit of time to define teeny tiny details. Like here, I'm using a peachy color to add some highlight to a waterline. the eyeshadow color wasn't popping like I wanted it to, so I put a base of white, then I lifted some pigment from my pencil and I applied it directly. This is where I start adding some individual layers to the eyebrow. I usually do that in a lighter and then in a darker color both. I will do similar with the creases on the lips just as well. As a personal stylistic choice, I like drawing a white line next to the black eyelashes. I love how it adds to it. And with all said and done, here's one side of the face all completed. You can see the difference, I think, quite dramatically. After doing the rest off camera, I'm finally back at the scar. The motif is really beautiful, and there's even the shape of a treble clef inside. Neptune is a musician, she plays the violin, so that felt appropriate to me. I filled it in with watercolors, mainly pink, green, and a bit of black just for contrast. Then I decided to give her some shine, so I whipped up my amazing mica powders from Magic Fly and I dusted some pink on her cheeks and piked some teal on her eyelids. I glossed her lips off camera and removed her hair situation, and that's what I'm left with. And my, I am proud of me this time. Okay, I know I say that in all my videos, and I know I might not love her as much in a month, but hey, gotta give a break to my low self-esteem, okay? Back to hair again, though this time we are giving her our final style. First I'll have to iron her hair again, because yarn just creases that easily. Then I'll have to cut some of her hair a little bit shorter, and for that I'll use an eyebrow razor to give a more wispy edge as opposed to a blunt scissors cut. I give her some nice waves with the metal chopstick method, and this is my final result. In my current setup it is extremely hard to film myself styling hair, so I hope you'll forgive me. If you know me or this channel, you know that clothes are the hard part, especially with fabric that doesn't stretch like this one here. So yeah, I'm going by feel. I freehanded a pattern required for a mermaid style gown by using my Monster High shirt pattern and Google for a reference. These are my 4 sections, and yes, I'm aware that it puts a seam in the middle at the front, but I'm okay with that. This fabric frays like there's no tomorrow, so I used fray check on all the sides before I even cut out the pieces. The next step was to join the first 2 frontal pieces together, and then I will add the other 2, one on each side. I'm purposely not joining the shoulder straps at this stage, though I am still pinning them to look at the fit of the dress and try it on the doll to see if adjustments are needed. For my next step, I decided I wanted to use that tool all over the dress. It's a bit short, but I figured I could isolate the bottom trim and gather it where the dress goes bigger under the knees. I just made sure to hem the bottom first though. And here's the finished dress. I made sure that my stitching was more consistent, and I feel like the practice is paying off. And I'm not using a sewing machine. I don't even own one actually, so this is, for me, a small victory. So now I can really join the shoulder straps together and then add some closure in the back. So, the dress is done, and the shape is what I wanted it to be. Now it's time for decoration. I have a lot of pearls and some lace, and it took me a while to just go through all my things and decide. I even thought about taking the lace from the tool I used on the dress, but layering it directly just looked like a dark blob spot thing. And yeah, butterflies are an eater. In the end, I added 3 main things. Some pastel pearls on the body of the dress, a trim of lace from a tulle of a different color, and some delicate sleeves. That pink lace is actually left over from what I cut out to make Minnie Moo's dress actually, so yeah, I just love it. I think it goes well together. As for the closure, it consists of 2 snaps and a band of velcro in the middle. It is tight, but she can still sit while wearing the dress, so I'm happy. I used the pale teal and pale purple pearls that you see in this box for the dress. And to go with it, I took a bracelet made of pastel pearls and had it in her hair. I've had it since more than a year and I always thought it was a bit big for a doll, but I like it like that. As for the shoes, I picked up this pair of resin 3D printed pumps that I got from Lady Dynamite Creates. I decided to paint them and finish the job with a coat of shiny mica powders. I mixed the mica powder with Mod Podge and a little bit of water because it comes off as really thick. Then I add a couple of coats and I will then seal it off with glossy varnish off camera at the end. I could not resist adding a few more pearls though. But really, I just love the effect of the mica powders on the shoes. It's probably really hard to tell, but I coated the black bottoms with regular matte varnish, but the teal section is all shiny. Okay, now with everything else out of the way, I can finish the body. The first step is always to clean the doll. Then you want to prepare it to receive paint. For that, I use really fine grit sandpaper and I roughly go all around the body. The aim is to create a better surface for the pigment to grip by removing the glossy top coat. The sandpaper also removes markings and tattoos really well. Do not use acetone though, as it can melt into the plastic. Though Monster High forearms and hands are often made with softer vinyl, and this is acetone safe. But I'd say if you're not sure, do not risk it. I then will use some rubbing alcohol to remove any remaining dirt, dust, or even grease and sweat from my own hands before getting the same paint I use on the face ready to be used on the body. So yeah, now while I'm at it, I will tell you why I'm not a fan of repainting bodies to change the skin tone. It's actually super tedious, and it's really long, and I'm a perfectionist, so it takes forever. Also, some issues are just plain unavoidable. It does not matter if you use an airbrush or if you use the pastel method with the sealant, there's no permanent change. The paint may always chip. The sealant may always chip. Actually, the paint will chip at the joint, even if you are super careful. You can add varnish to make it stronger and more durable, but inevitably it might happen. It just makes the doll a whole lot more fragile and yeah, it's beautiful, but it's not durable. And I mean, look at it, it looks nice. I even added some pastel blushing and fashioned tiny jewelry. I'm really happy, but the joints won't hold, and the feet, I mean, putting the shoes on will probably scratch the feet first. It's one of my pet peeves, really. I don't know, I kind of always have this anxiety of sending a doll out to a client and have them accidentally scratch her to take her out of the box. Well, I guess I'm going to pray. So now, well, I removed part of her neck peg. That's going to help getting the process of putting her back together way easier. I'm also going to whip up my heat gun to heat and soften the vinyl around the neck hole to make sure things go smoothly. She was a little bit difficult and... You see that? That's one mighty crack. And yep, I don't want to force too much. The last thing I want is a broken neck. I'm already scared about the paint after all, so yeah. I'm using my heat gun, protecting the sealant and the yarn hair the best I can. You can also use a hairdryer, but yeah, just be careful not to melt anything. Okay, so I'm actually super lucky that it broke the way it did. The peg is undamaged and, well, the rod that holds it is also fine, so all I have to do now is to glue it back carefully with super glue and it won't compromise our posability. Though it will leave a scar, definitely. Okay, so it's not bad. Okay, it's not bad. Was there damage on her face? Short answer, yes. It's literally peeling off. Hi, at this moment, Sasha has checked out. They are panicking, even knocking small water containers all over the work area by trying to get something going. Her face was peeling off, like my sanity. So I decided that I was gonna give it a few coats of Mod Podge to freeze that in place and prevent further wrinkling and peeling. That's the video I posted on my Instagram stories to show people the damage, but this way after I glued the neck parts back together, so, well, anyways. Now I think the reason why I do not like covering every centimeter of a doll in paint is more clear. I say that, but it's my first catastrophe of this kind, and I've done it on more dolls than I can count, so yeah, you get my meaning. It still works, but yeah, it can happen. To finish patching things up, I dabbled a bit of paint trying to blend it with my mighty fingers. I mean, with a bit of luck this won't show in pictures? I hope so. Fingers crossed. Okay, so in the end, she got a ribbon choker to hide her scarring. Actually, it's actually not bad, so I think I can say crisis averted. So now, after this nightmarish interlude, we can do the real get-together and dress her up to be presented to the public. I hope you'll like her, or that you learned something about customizing while watching me work on her. I'm sincerely happy, so yeah, here's my Princess Neptune. And that, my friends, is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed. I know my kind of humor and personality is not for everyone, but I really love putting a bit more of myself out there, so yeah, I'd love to know what you think. About the doll too, please sign off in the comments below. Any engagement really is helping this channel. And well, hopefully, I'll see you in about 2 weeks with Vaggie from Hazbin Hotel. In the meantime though, please, stay safe.